Hello friends, so welcome to this lecture on Azure Identity and its types. So before digging into the further, we should know what is identity as we have already studied. It could be a service, a user or application that can get authenticated within the Azure AD. And identity could be your user, a group, right? And which is having a password or having the credentials. So identities also include your applications or other servers that might require authentication to a secrets or a keys or certificates. So we have different types of identities in Azure. It could be a user, a group, or a application or a server. Then we have is the manage identities within the Azure. So that is the concept we need to understand. And with the managed identities, there are two types. One is the system managed and the other is the user managed identity. So before digging into the further details of system manage and user manage, we need to understand the pain points that okay, why we need these identities because we were already having these user groups and all these things. So what is the concept of managed identity and why we need it? See, one thing we need to understand that security or keeping the credentials safe and secure has always been a priority, and even that is increased within the adoption of cloud or building your applications within the cloud. See, the potential challenge is that within the application or the applications which you are created within the cloud or virtual machines, and these applications they basically need to authenticate to other services within the cloud, like it could be a key vault or virtual machine could be accessing your SQL server. So in that case, one service is trying to access the other service, or let's say you have an application which is installed onto a virtual machine is trying to access a Cosmos DB or a key vault. So in that case, the practice which is generally used by the developer is putting the code within the application or hard coding the code within the application, which is not a good practice. So in that case, the creation of managed identities can solve that particular issue, and with the help of which there is no need to store the credentials within the code. So once the managed identity is created, in that case, it will give a kind of a service principal or create a space within the Active Directory with the help of which it can authenticate to the other services. So we'll see that in a moment. What are the different managed identities we have? So we'll see how this managed identities work. So basically, creating a managed identity, you can say, theoretically gives your device or your virtual machine on which you will be installing an application an identity from the Azure Active Directory to complete that basically required task, and the give that application which is installed onto your virtual machine access or secret that it requires to authenticate to other services like Key Vault. So the first one is system managed identity. See from the name, try to understand from the name. This identity is enabled onto the Azure service, giving the actual service and identity within the Azure AD. For example, when you assign a system identity to a virtual machine, so in that case, that virtual machine is given an identity within the Azure AD. So any application which you will be installing onto that can basically be used to access that particular other service within the Azure. So this service identity within the Azure AD is only active until the instance has been disabled or deleted. See, it is a system managed. So the basic difference between the two system managed and the user managed is about the life cycle. So this is created. Once this happens, Azure will automatically clean up the service identity within the Azure. But with the user managed identity, this is the identity which is created or require a manual intervention. So in that case, a standalone resource. So for example, in this particular, let's say you have created a VM, then you can do assign a managed identity or create a user identity. So basically it creates an identity within the Azure AD that can be assigned to one or more service instance. So like I said, the difference between the two is the life cycle. So cleaning up this identity is not completed automatically and requires a input to clean up. So once you delete that particular, let's say, virtual machine, that particular identity created for that virtual machine is automatically deleted from that Active Directory, which is not the case with the user manager entity. So this is it, friends. In this lecture, we discussed what is identity, what are types, and then the managed identities, system, and the user managed. System manages which is automatically created, and the user manages which you create and assign it to a particular service. And the difference between the two is the related to the life cycle when you delete a particular identity. So this is it, friends, in this lecture. Thank you for watching this lecture. Meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.